Okay, welcome everyone. We're recording now our Empathy Circle Facilitator training, reflective listener session. I'm going to share the screen. We have a slideshow that I want to share. Does anyone know how to have when you do a slideshow like this that you see, sometimes you see the people in the upper left, right-hand corner or something? Does anyone know how to do that? How'd they do that with Zoom? No, anyway, I guess not.
I think you do it on the participant side. I don't think the host can necessarily make the other show up, but if you can click a button at the session.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, do you see anything now? Is that just anything different? I'm bringing this. Oh, no, never mind. Anyway, all right, let's get started. This is the Empathy Circle Facilitator training, and it's the reflective listener role. This is hosted by the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, which you can reach at cultureofempathy.com, and by the Empathy Tent, which you can reach at empathytent.com. And that's a picture there of us at UC Berkeley on Sproul Plaza with the Empathy Tent, adding a little bear. We have an invitation to viewers, so for anyone watching this on Facebook, on social media, on YouTube, we invite you to join an empathy circle for bridging social and political divides, and also to join our Empathy Circle Facilitator training, which is what you're watching at the moment. And you can find out more information about it at empathycircle.com, and the steps for getting involved in a Empathy Circle of the facilitation training is there. So we hope you'll join us, and we're really trying to spread this practice far and wide. This is module 1 of our training, and it consists of 4 sessions, and this is session 3, the reflective listener. We're still kind of working on the module. We are kind of shifting around. This is sort of a test of it. So sometimes we say it's 5, sometimes 4, but right now we kind of scaled it down to 4 sessions. And so I want to just mention, as participants, be sure to take care of yourself. If you feel you need to get up and stretch and move, use the restrooms, feel free to do it. Really have that self-care. And it's a lot of sitting, it's a couple hours of sitting, so be sure to take care of yourself. And we want to start with the participant check-in. And we're going to do a 2-minute just mindfulness, self-connection. We're going to connect with our own empathy, empathize into our own bodies. So it'll take 2 minutes for sort of a meditative self-empathy connection. And then we'll have a round of sharing and some mirroring exercises. So to begin with, I'll just keep time here, setting it for 2 minutes. Maybe take a deep breath, get comfortable in your chair. It's nice to close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that. And just close your eyes and just sense into your body. Notice the sensations, and maybe how your body is in the chair. You're feeling a connection with the floor or the chair. Just what are the different sensations that you're feeling in your body? Maybe do a scan from the top of your head to the bottom, just whatever is comfortable for you. Okay, if you want to come back, that was 2 minutes. And we're going to go around and just take about 30 seconds or so to check in. How are you doing? And end with movement that kind of represents how you're feeling. And I will model it. And for me, how am I doing? We just did a 2-hour empathy circle before this, and I really had a good time with it, and so I feel pretty good about it. It is a lot of sitting, so I feel a little stiff. And overall, I feel energetic. I'm kind of excited about doing this, and so my movement is sort of energetic, if you want to mirror it. This is okay, Zach, I'm not feeling it. It's like really got to get into the, there we go. And Jyoti, you got to wait. Everybody's got to mirror it because this is creating synchronization, bodily synchronization, and that really fosters oxytocin and fosters more empathy. So I feel heard and seen, and we'll maybe go from the top here. Susan, would you like to go next? You're muted. There you go.
Now something just happened. I lost the whole thing. So how I'm feeling right now is I'm very distracted because I can't see anything on my screen other than some old windows that were up before, like the window that has the URL to get on this call. So I'm feeling confused. Where did you guys go?
Where did you go?
I can't see you. I can't feel.
I can't feel you.
I'm going to trust that you're mirroring my movement right now.
Yeah, we probably close a few windows. That might help. We're here. We're still here, and we see you. Jyoti, would you like to go? We see you in the shadow a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the lighting. I changed where I'm sitting, and I haven't figured that out yet. I was feeling a little stressed because I couldn't figure out a question to put in the Word document. So I finally put something in there, but I was really nice to read over the guidelines. I enjoyed that. And open, just wanting to be present.
Right.
Can you see? Yeah. Okay.
Just
Thanks.
okay.
Yeah, Edwin loves the mirror neurons. Okay, Edwin, I honor you.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
So, when I did the body scan, the first thing I noticed was just some like cramping in my stomach, or abdomen, lower abdomen, and some kind of like thoughts happening, but then kind of coming to a place of calm. So I kind of want to tell a story with the motion. So first would be kind of like holding my stomach and kind of like healing over a little bit, and then thoughts, and then calm. So it's like this, thoughts, calm.
And you got to check us if we're doing it right. So
Yeah, so you're kind of like healing over, get the thoughts over here, and then calm. Yeah.
Okay.
Good to me.
Okay, Evan?
Yeah, just kind of sleepy, and I'm okay with that. So if anyone wants to sleep. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bill?
Well, I was on the last call. I really enjoyed it. I am a little tired of sitting. And how am I feeling? I'm feeling okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Zach?
Okay. I'm feeling a little spaced out at the moment. I think most of it has to do with the connection for the video is stopping and starting constantly. So maybe I'll do like that. It's making me disconnect a little bit. Hopefully the connection will get better. So I'm just going to do this.
Okay.
I see everybody, I saw everybody do it once, and then it all froze and coughed. I'm going to try reconnecting.
Okay.
Real quick. I'll be right back.
Hopefully that'll help your connection. So, yeah, it is a lot of sitting, so that's part of the exercise for doing the mirroring exercise. We'll do it a couple times because it just helps kind of move our body. Because it gets I get stiff here. So, and let's go back to the slide. So our session today is session 3, and it's the reflective listener role. And an overview for today is we want to do a review of what the reflective listener role is. We're going to share the question. It was the on-arrival question, a list of questions. So just hear what everyone's questions are about this role. We'll go into empathic listening on question 2, which is just hearing what has everyone's life experience been, in general, with listening. And then we'll go into more specific question. We'll do an empathic listening round around the circle listening experience. So within the empathy circle, what has been your experience? And then finally, we'll end with just some feedback. That's just a little overview of today. And so to start with, we have the reflective listener role. So in an empathy circle, we have multiple roles. And one of them is the person that is listening and reflecting. And so the listener just listens to what is being said, and then they reflect back to the speaker's satisfaction, their understanding of what the speaker has said. And the listener may ask the speaker to pause, if they're feeling like there's a lot going on and they're feeling overwhelmed with what they need to reflect. They can say, hey, please pause and let me just reflect back what I'm hearing you say. And then the reflection is in their own words, the listener reflects back the essence of what the speaker is saying, and they also may summarize or paraphrase or just give back the core. And if you're familiar with some of the other practices, you can also do a feelings guess, like guessing what the person's feeling is and the needs, being the feelings sort of behind the feelings that people may have. So that's just a very basic overview of the listener role in an empathy circle. And we had thought of maybe doing 2 separate sessions at one point because it is sort of the most difficult part of an empathy circle is the listening and the reflecting. So I wanted to go around and just hear, what do you see? Just hear from everyone, what do you see as the role of the listener? So just from your own experience, what do you see as the role of the listener? If somebody wants to jump in on that to start.
I think the role of listener is to offer uncommon presence.
So to be present with people, just kind of be present.
Yeah, and I think that it's a level of presence that is not ordinary, so it's uncommon.
Mm-hmm. So kind of the role of the listener is to offer a deep form of presence then.
Yeah.
Is there more, or that's good?
Well, under that comes, being able to reflect back what someone says and tell the speaker satisfied they've been heard.
Mm-hmm.
But it requires an uncommon level of commitment to being very present to do that.
Okay, thanks. Susan, would you want to go next?
I think the role of the listener is to pay really good attention to what's going on both verbally and non-verbally, and communicate to the speaker that you're really interested and present. And then to give that speaker a sense that you care and that you've heard them and that you kind of get their world. And another thing that I think happens for the speaker is you hear how you're coming across, and sometimes you realize, no, that isn't actually the best statement of what I feel about this issue. And so sometimes I get the opportunity to say, yeah, you heard me, but now that you've heard that, I want to sort of amend that or change my mind a little bit. So I think this is a great service to the speaker.
So as a listener, you're kind of offering this service to the speaker so they can actually explore their own their own ideas or feelings better and kind of even become more accurate.
Right. And so the danger is that the person who's reflecting back, who gets from the speaker, no, because sometimes the speakers aren't very clear. They go, no, really what I meant was da, da, da. And actually the listener did a perfect job, but the speakers changed their mind. So I think we need to accommodate for that eventuality in our circles.
Okay, thanks.
Like, don't take it personally if they sort of change their story on you. Don't say, well, I did it perfect, that kind of thing. So we have to be non-defensive in how we, the listener, hear amendments to the first story.
Okay, thanks. Bill, would you?
Well, I would agree with a lot that's been said as far as being present and really sharing somebody. And I think the only thing that I would add is somehow is not to be washed away, but to let yourself be affected by the other people. They have an impact, and to sort of be mindful about that and accepting of it, and kind of listen to them and contain them in safety and respect.
Okay, thanks. Evan?
Yeah, I guess my biggest goal is always accuracy. So just to be able to reflect back exactly what they're saying, whether it's, a more detailed or if it's just summed up, whatever it is, that it's accurate, gets to the root of what they're saying. And I think for me, it's like not just about paying good attention is obviously, a big part of it. But for me, it's also about staying unbiased. So keeping my own interpretations that might change the message a little bit, and just trying to staying true to the message and leaving my biases out of it.
Okay. I was just saying, thanks. Zach was just saying something. Restarted computer. I can only hear every other phrase. We'll watch the recording this evening. So guess he's having trouble technical, so he's dropping out. Okay, Sam?
Yeah, I also really like what everyone's added so far, and I would see the listener's role as the opportunity to really truly connect with the other person through your presence. And also my goal for that state of presence, the state of being that you bring is important. So I would say, like, coming from a place of curiosity or open-mindedness or compassion, where you're just kind of opening yourself to the other person. And then that allows the other person to feel more seen and heard and accepted. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks. So what we're trying to do with this question is, we're looking at the listener role, the tips and experiences, and we're, just really trying to harvest. So really try to harvest all these different insights as we're going to be keeping iterating, on the description. So all this is going to be very helpful for us to gather these insights and incorporate it into the next training, since this is sort of our first sort of test of this specific curriculum. So the next thing we had was, let me just share the screen quickly. And we had just, we have question 1 now. So we had, we have an on-arrival question. So before everyone joined the call, they wrote the answers to a couple of questions, and one of them was actually, what questions do you have about the listener role? And so we just want to go around and share those, and we would just go down the screen here. I have the document open. So is Jyoti, you had the first one. Do you want to just read? It's only just listing your questions that you have, or that's all we're going to do at this point.
I just have difficulty interrupting when someone's going on and on for a long time, trying to find a place to interrupt without getting communicating disrespect or engendering frustration in that person.
Okay, so really how to interrupt people in a kind way, or effective way. Mm-hmm. Great. Susan? Oh, you're muted.
My question for the listener role is, how much do we focus on what was actually said and look for like maybe key emotionally loaded words that they actually said so we can mirror that back? How much do we lead the witness? This isn't all in my question, but how much do we kind of insert our hunch about needs, let's say? And how much do we just give our own words and almost like try not to be a little robot repeating back what we heard? And I have my own answer to that question, but I'm just going to put that out because I think it's a good question.
Okay, thanks. And then actually, Megan's not here, but she had left a question. I'll just read it here. Is it really helpful for listeners to hear the speaker's judgment or blame or aggression? Okay. And Zach is not here, and his question was, not to make it more like therapy, how could the listener take notes? What impacts, good, bad, neutral, could note-taking have? When preparing someone for listening, reflecting for the first time, what are some techniques to help them connect with the listening practice? Okay. Bill, you want to read yours?
Yeah, let's see, I don't see it there, but anyway, mine had to do with similar to Jyoti, and it had to do with the fact of trying to let things flow naturally or to interrupt in a certain timely way so that I can participate. And, what I try to do is, I try to err on the side of not participating a bit, but also knowing that, if I just totally miss something, then, cumulatively it's better if I interrupt in order to keep the flow going. But it's that kind of a loose of kind of flow, trying to keep that going.
Mm-hmm. Keep the flow going. Okay. Sam?
My questions were more related to kind of like how I could I'd like to learn more about how to listen for the deeper feelings and needs in what somebody's saying, and kind of reflecting back what they're saying, but not like what they're not saying in what they're saying, kind of in a way. And that was something I didn't mention before, but like a role for the listener is a way to reflect back, like show the speaker themselves, and maybe show them a part of themselves that they're not used to seeing or don't readily connect with. So that was one question. And I'm curious about what role questions could have, if anything, because I know in the document it was sort of saying you sort of don't insert any questions, but sometimes I feel like questions could, like when they come from genuine curiosity and the intention to further clarify or understand what somebody's saying, do I ask the question or not? Right now, I just don't ask any questions because I feel like that's sort of what's been communicated the process is, but I guess I'm kind of curious as to what role questions could have or not in the listener role.
Okay. So I guess we're on the mind. So what do I have here? So what I'm wondering is about my mindset as a listener and sort of an awareness of the mindset, because it feels like my mindset is like a filter. And can I create how do I create a more clear mindset? Because I know when I'm stressed that it affects my filter, my listening, and also what effect do the deeper motivations, like I heard curiosity, like having a feeling of curiosity, having a feeling of curiosity about the humanity, the deeper feeling. So it's really questions about my own internal makeup and how that affects the listening, and also the role of feelings, like the sensitivity. What is the role of really being sensitive to the felt experience to listening? So those are just, yeah. So those are some questions, and we want to go then to the next question, which is our empathic listening round. So, we've talked about what is the role, some of our questions, some of our curiosity about what, questions we have about the role. And now we want to zoom out a bit to look at what has been our experience with being a listener in life in general. And we want to use the empathy circle, empathic listening process itself to discuss that. So can someone keep time? You were doing that before, Evan. Would you be willing to do it again?
Sure.
So if whoever would like to start, it's just like, what has been and this was on our arrival question, so you wrote down some notes, but this is just saying it from just whatever comes up. And so if someone would like to start and select who you'd like to speak to, we can do one round.
I can start.
Okay.
I'll have Jyoti as my listener.
Okay.
So I feel like I've always been considered a good listener by my friends and family growing up. A lot of people would confide in me about things. And I really enjoyed being in that role, and it felt good it almost felt like an honor to be taken into what others were struggling with. I'll pause there.
So we have a lot of experience in the past of being someone that people come to, and you got a lot of joy out of being able to receive people, and always kind of experience it as an honor that they would confide in you.
Yeah, and I also I was able to see, not that I was able to, but I really enjoyed seeing all sides of all perspectives in like an argument or a conflict. If I had two friends that were in a fight with each other, I always understood each person's side, and I would try to like mediate them.
It sounds like it kind of came naturally to you, that you could see and even enjoyed seeing all sides and try to mediate all those perspectives.
Yeah, so I think in getting enjoyment from that kind of listening, I ended up going into like a counseling profession. But I still notice that I struggle sometimes with being fully present and allowing my thoughts to step aside and just be fully present.
So as you've taken this kind of innate talent of yours and made it a profession, you're developing awareness that often you need to exert some conscious effort to put the thoughts aside and stay present.
Yeah, it very much is an effort, and it's a constant intention I have to keep reminding myself of and practicing each time.
So it's like a practice. So each time you need to remind yourself to stay present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm just hoping that my participation in these empathy circles, or just in this practice, I can learn to deepen that my skills there, and also being able to listen more for the deeper feelings and needs and what somebody's saying, and showing them their sort of like hidden or exiled parts.
So you're hoping your participation in this process will deepen your skill and expand your capacity to, and perhaps maybe make it less of an effortful endeavor as it becomes a little more natural and automatic. Am I hearing you right?
I didn't say that, but that's part of it, yeah.
Okay. There more?
Yeah, and it was just the part about like wanting to really know somebody deeply, like hear what they're saying, but then see what they're hiding, kind of, or it's hard to explain, but like see what maybe they're unable to see in themselves and being able to show that to them.
Yeah, see the craving to really connect at a very very deep level that's maybe even beyond some others' kind of ordinary daily daily awareness.
Yes, I really do crave that kind of deeper connection with people.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I feel fully heard.
You're welcome. So what are we supposed to be talking about?
It was just your experience with listening in life in general, like, over the course, can be from childhood till now. So over the course of your life, what's been your experience with being a listener?
Well,
and selecting who you want to speak to, since you get rid.
Okay, William. My experience being a listener over my life has, my early life made me decide to become as invisible as possible. And because I didn't find anybody to listen back for safe, and so I kind of hid for safety reasons. So that's part of my experience.
Okay. So in your early life, listening, you didn't participate in listening because other people weren't listening to you, so you just kind of withdrew and hid.
Actually, I listened very carefully as a way of protecting myself. And because of what I heard and observed, saw, I made decisions to make myself as scarce as possible.
Okay. So listening was an excellent skill and served very well, but more as self-protection and anticipation from what the people were talking about around you, and what they were talking about around you made you want to make yourself scarce.
Right. And what they didn't talk about, their body language, the interactions between each other. And I know it just was a climate of unsafety. So I decided to become as scarce and when I tried to speak myself, this is not about being a listener, but when I tried to speak myself, it was not welcomed.
Mm-hmm. So in your family, especially we're talking about early childhood, speaking and your speaking was not welcomed. And not only that, but looking at the body language and the topics around you, you felt that, listening and speaking was not valued.
What I observed was what it took to get yourself heard wasn't something I was willing to participate in.
Okay. So there's a high price, I assume, in acting out in order to get yourself heard.
Yeah, very well said. And I picked you because I know you understand this dynamic. Yeah. So I heard and I understood what was happening. So, but then learning because of that experience, I think that it's made me capable of hearing people now that I'm choosing to speak up and participate. Made me a pretty good listener.
Okay. So in your more recent experience, in contrast to your early childhood, you found that listening and communicating has been very effective, and you appreciate it all the more in contrast to what you experienced at a young age.
Mm-hmm. And still trying to navigate that safety piece.
Right, but still dealing with the post-traumatic stress of unsafeness.
No, not just post-traumatic stress, but the reality of how our culture is, it is so, I find, reactive and makes assumptions and will, if you say something, take it in a certain way. And there's so many assumptions. It's like, that's not what I meant at all. So mostly I'm talking about speaking instead of the listening part now. I'm confusing the two. But yeah, I just find that I can listen to people pretty well, I think, because I wasn't heard myself much.
Mm-hmm. So you weren't heard yourself much, and so you appreciate when you can listen to others and what they can appreciate to you. But rather than simply reacting to what post-traumatic stress, which assumes that the trauma is in the past, you see patterns in the present and things like that are troubling to you, and so you want to protect yourself against those particular things.
Yes. Yeah, I find them very, very present, a very present danger on an ongoing basis.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Okay. Susan? Okay. Well, listening is, I go back to this, we're talking about this on the earlier call. Listening is very, very important. It is what we want from other people. I'll stop there.
So to you, listening is really important, and it's kind of one of the essential things we really want from other people.
Right. And I know I've said these before, but when my students acted out physically, we would then gather together and ask ourselves, what's the communicative intent? What are they trying to get past? And then when we could figure it out and address the need, violence went down.
So in your experience dealing with acting out kids, you guys, the staff, had the question, what's the communicative intent
Hmm.
of this acting out behavior? And when you could figure that out, the
Mhm.
and address that need, the acting out went down.
Right. And this is a very powerful thing that is undervalued in our society. And I believe is the key or the basis, the social glue that will help us organize under the right principles and solve our problems.
Mm. So you believe that understanding this is essential to a society where we can work together to solve our problems as a society.
Thank you, Susan. I feel very heard. Thank you.
Okay. I'll pick Sam to be my listener.
Could you pick Evan or I, because Sam was the first to speak? Then,
Oh,
because we want everybody to have one turn, one round.
Yeah. Okay. Later, Sam. Evan, would you be my listener?
Sure.
Okay. Well, as long as I can remember, I've always been really interested in how it is for other people. I've just been intensely curious.
So for as long as you can remember, you've been very curious about what it's like for other people.
And I assume that most of us have that curiosity. I'm not sure if that assumption is correct, but I have assumed that. And so I created a bunch of card games where people ask and answer self-disclosure questions to kind of give people a structured opportunity for that.
Okay, so you go with the assumption that most of us kind of have that same curiosity about what it's like for other people. So you created this card game where you get to ask questions and sort of a structure based around that.
Yeah, and just listening to some of you guys share today, I'm going to facilitate a game night at my house in a week or so. I'm getting some more ideas for how to facilitate better, so I want to thank everybody.
Okay, so you've got a game night coming up and you're actually getting inspired with some ideas from the conversations we're having here.
Yeah, and as far as just me being in a listener role, I think that I've always been able to be open and pretty patient with most people, although I do notice that sometimes let's say I'm either bored or wishing I could interrupt.
Okay, so you see yourself as, having listened to a lot of people with patience and understanding, but then sometimes, you've caught yourself getting bored or wanting to interrupt.
Yeah, so let me just say I'm still working with my own. I'm going to call it my need to be entertained. I have that as one of my patterns in life, and so I'm still working with that because I truly do care about people, and I want people to feel safe around me.
Okay, so you want to find the right balance between the need to be entertained and, of course, wanting to be present for people.
Thank you. I feel fully heard, Evan.
Okay, great. So I guess I'll go back to Edwin.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Okay. So I guess I think a bit of a turning point for me was in college. I was on a finance track, and I was basically in junior year. I was like, finance is not what I'm passionate about at all. I don't know why it took me that long. And I was really intrigued and interested and enjoying my psychology classes. But I didn't really, I tried to consult with my mom about switching, but she strongly discouraged me from switching. So, and she was successful. But I did get a chance to take more management classes. Maybe I'll pause there.
Okay, I think it was finance. You started in college. You were doing finance classes, and it was, I guess, you were saying in your junior year, you said, no, maybe this is not the right thing, and you're looking at what you enjoyed, and it was psychology, the classes that you enjoyed, and you kind of checked with your mother about switching. Sounds like she wasn't too happy about that. So you did, sounds like maybe a compromise. You did some more management type classes.
Yeah, and luckily, one of the management classes really was basically a psychology class. Well, I guess all of them were, but we had this assignment that really, I think, started or helped push this journey for me, which was to pick someone, anyone in your life, and just go listen to them and sort of practice active listening. And being able to reflect back and just sort of paraphrase what they're saying and reflect it back. And that was just a really powerful assignment for me that I think really just, I think I was always on sort of that road, a road that sort of aligns with that. Just, I don't know, maybe as a middle child, I think I've exhibited a lot of the classical signs of middle child behavior, sort of being an observer and mediator kind of personality, but I think that assignment really helped push me along.
Okay, so you have a natural sort of a mediator listener quality to you, but it was like in this class where they actually had you do some active listening that it kind of started you on this, kind of a real path towards this active listening direction.
Yeah, and I've always had friends come to me whenever they're like in crisis mode and they really need someone to listen to them. Just, really just be a soundboard that's not gonna, try to distract them with advice and all that. And then the last thing really is, I think NVC kind of was like, I feel like I was on the road, but then NVC was like, I discovered the destination. I was like, oh, okay, that's where I was headed the whole time. There's actually a full city that's already been built, and I can just go live there.
Okay, so it's like you have that natural listening to you, and people would come to you and you would listen to them sort of naturally in the course of your life. But then you discovered NVC, and it was like, oh, this whole space is already developed, this whole city, this whole way of being. So you just feel very at home there.
Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay, thanks. I'll speak to Sam. So over the course of my life, I think part for me, it's like how the question is how to relate to people, how to interact with people and finding a comfortable way of interacting with people. What I sort of discovered and just landed on was questions, asking a lot of questions, to people, and sort of in one sense, sort of staying in control of the dialogue, but having a curiosity as well. So it was a lot of sort of listening and asking questions.
Yeah, so I'm hearing you say that you've been kind of on a journey through your life about trying to learn how to interact with people, and one of the things that you've discovered works well for you is to focus on asking questions as a way to guide the conversations, have a little bit more control or a sense of control, and also, express your curiosity that way too.
And it's a way of sort of having an equilibrium within relating. It's like, okay, I'm with these people, what do I do? It's like, how do I interact? I'm a little nervous here. Like, what do I do? It's like, oh, if I ask a question and sort of, explore their lives, that kind of creates a sense of equilibrium and sort of a way of being, I guess. Yeah.
So maybe you might find yourself with people who maybe you didn't have a lot of connections with, and there was some anxiety about how am I going to connect with these people who maybe aren't like me, and so then I can ask them questions and then start to become more on an even playing field with them.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much on an even playing field. It's more, I can sort of orientate myself in a comfortable role. And I even had spent 10 years traveling around the world, and I called myself a seeker or a quester. So a quester is basically, someone out there searching, exploring and asking, a lot of questions. So that was like a real core to who I was,
So you've always been a seeker and a quester and somebody who is always asking questions, and so then it just felt natural that that's how you would interact with people too.
And then the other thing was in terms of like romantic relationships, it's sort of the feeling into someone else's experience, who they are, as another way of listening. That's like a really deep form of listening, when is, who is this person, just their deeper heart and soul, and kind of feeling and listening. So it's a deeper listening that's beyond, just kind of a reflection of words or something that they're saying, but really going deeply into the felt experience and feeling those feelings and that sense of connection, kind of wanting that sense of connection.
So through romantic relationships, you've been able to discover an even deeper way of connecting with others that involves more just feeling into them and being with them fully and completely, in ways that you hadn't been before with other interactions.
Yeah. So in terms of listening, I guess there's the other side of it, kind of being heard part. It's a little bit different, but I don't know if I want to, it's when I speak, I think, and I don't feel people really hearing, like I feel I don't see an affect. It's like I don't feel a clear sense that they're interested in what I have to say. It kind of shuts me down from kind of speaking. That was just something else I was noticing, but that's a little bit, that's again being sort of the speaker role, I think.
Yeah, so there's kind of a lot of blending between the listener and speaker roles, and on the speaker side of things, you've noticed that as a speaker, you haven't gotten the kind of listening from others. There've been sort of a disconnection communicated in their affect or their response or lack thereof, and so you felt kind of shut down and disconnected.
Yeah, and so that's what I really love about the empathy circle. There's a clear rule that I will be heard. I know I've got your full attention. You can't get away, and I can keep speaking. So I really enjoy, I'm kind of switching to the speaker role, but so that's very satisfying. That's what I like about empathy circles. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, so the empathy circles are so satisfying because you have this assurance that you're going to be heard in a way that you've wanted to be, because that's part of the structure and part of this process. Yeah,
that's it. Thank you. I feel fully heard. So the next thing is we're going to do another mirroring just to get some, check in with how we're doing and get a little bit of a body motion. So how's everyone doing? Kind of what's a felt experience that you're feeling right now? And share it, and we'll do a mirroring. If anybody wants to start.
When you were talking, Edwin, I was like, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I love empathy circles, and this, like what Evan said about this home, because I don't have to be violent or obnoxious or competitive to get heard. So this is such a natural, like, comfortable way to get my need to be heard, is just languishing and existing in the empathy world, into the NVC world. And it's very healing and helpful.
Mm. And what's the feeling you have? How would you turn that into emotion? We'll mirror it.
Oh, relief. Relief.
Relief.
It's like celebration. It's like we're celebrating relief. Yeah.
And that can be a sound too to it. If you got a sound, woo, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't have a sound. It's a celebration of relief. Of finally, there's some safety in the world. A place where I can discover safety.
Okay, well, I'll go next. So my feeling is a little cramped. I'm kind of like keeping things, so I'm feeling a little cramped. And then I kind of like, opening up. It's like kind of this cramped, and I'm saying, oh, open up, kind of really wanting to stretch, kind of feel it in my whole body. Yes. Susan's really got it. Who wants to go next?
Oh, I'll go next. So my neck is stiff. So I'm going to take this opportunity with you all to help myself. Loosening up my neck.
Oh, you're helping out me
Helping
too.
us too.
Thank you.
Okay.
I can go next.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you have more, Susan?
No, I was just forgot that I didn't know if I was supposed to pick somebody, and I see that I didn't need to do that.
Yes, whoever.
I was just distracted a little bit with some pain right here, so if anyone enjoys this. That's all I got.
I'll go next. I like how this is sort of like a self-care check-in, because I felt this sort of like pressure on my butt and just kind of needing to just sort of get up and shake my legs a little bit. So kind of shaking the legs.
Yeah.
Really good. And then sort of like turn my trunk. I see other people doing that naturally, and I was like, oh, good idea.
Wow. Good.
Nice.
I think you're the last, Bill.
Okay. Well, you guys giving me a workout here. So let's see, what haven't we done? Okay. Just I'm feeling, a little bit of office chair fever, but I'm okay. I'm taking care of myself, and I'm kind of swimming through it. Oh. Thank you.
Stop too soon.
Hey, I'm the speaker.
Thanks. So just from having done that sharing, how is that the sharing of those stories? I always, and I'll start with that. I really like hearing people's broader stories of their history of listening. It really kind of makes me feel like, oh, maybe I'm not so alone in kind of the experiences I've had, and also makes me feel a lot more connected, getting to know everyone. So just how is that for you, Jyoti?
I've enjoyed getting to know everybody too. Yeah. It's feeling like I have some kind of a connection with each person.
Okay, if I just want to go around, maybe Sam, would you how was that, sharing those stories?
Yeah, it was really nice to be heard, and also to see some of myself and my experience in those of others, and feel connected that way. So, yeah.
Okay. Evan?
Yeah, it was nice, not only to hear but also to share, because I feel like in the empathy circles, we've got a topic and it's kind of political and stuff, but I couldn't escape it, so I shared. I mean, well, I could have not gone into more of the personal stuff about my mom and class, but I enjoyed sharing those details.
Bill?
No, it felt good. It's just it's deepening, in a different way, just what other people are feeling. And that just adds richness. So I'm a happy chappy. Thanks.
Susan?
I enjoyed that round very much. Just hearing people, how you talked about your own life experience. And when Bill said the phrase communicative intent, I said, now that's a keeper for me. That's going to help me be a better listener in the future. So I not only felt good, I learned something.
Great. So, okay, then we're moving on to our next question here. I'll put that on the screen. So our third question is, describe your experience in having, just listened to and reflected to the previous speaker. So this is a little bit more of a complicated experience here. So the first person one person, we just need someone to share about sort of any topic. And then the person that's listening to them, will reflect back. But then when it's your turn to speak, talk about what was the experience of just having listened to that person, like in real time. I don't know if that makes sense. So someone can start on see what would be a good time for reflects back. Maybe just if the first person talks about what is your experience of listening in an empathy circle, someone can just start that, and then the next person when they speak is going to be about having listened to that person. What was the experience? So in sort of real time. So does anybody want to start? And we'll.
I can start just
okay.
in general of having participated in empathy circles before, and like when I first started. Oh, sorry.
Maybe I'll model it. If you want to speak to me, then I can model. Just speak.
Okay, so
okay?
you'll listen for me.
Yeah. And 5 minutes, Evan. Thanks.
Okay, so when I first started doing empathy circles, I remember being really nervous about being the listener because I was worried, am I gonna forget what they said or am I gonna get it right? So there was a lot of sort of anxiety at first.
So to begin with, when you're first doing the empathy circles, it was this feeling of anxiety. And it was like you're questioning, am I going to do it right? Am I going to understand them? So that was just some sources of the anxiety.
Yeah, and that's definitely lessened over time. But I do still notice this kind of like, extra alertness of like, okay, I really got to be on my best game kind of a feeling.
So it's like when you're becoming the listener, it's like, there's a responsibility. I got to be on my best game. So there's maybe a bit of, alertness and.
Yeah, and I would like that. I would like to approach it from a space of like a calmer place. But I do still notice that when I listen in the empathy circles, it's, there's still this kind of background worry that I might not get it or I might miss something.
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of would like a more of a calm, relaxed feeling when you do the listening, but you're noticing there still is some kind of anxiety there that maybe you're not going to do it right. You're not going to get it all.
Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. Then I'll speak to Susan. So now I'm speaking about what was my experience listening to Sam. And I felt like a sense of interest and almost like joy in hearing kind of her experience. Like, oh, it felt like I was sensing, oh, there's something very honest about this, and a sense of feeling sort of touched by the honesty of it.
So as you were listening to Sam, Edwin, you were interested and you felt like this almost sense of joy at just being present to her, and you were touched too.
Yeah.
Listening experience.
And I also noticed that the thought came to me that, oh, I have to report back on what my experience is. Right? So I was trying to divide myself in two, so one part would look at the experience. It was kind of like a funny, and I tried to do it, and I couldn't do it, and I was kind of like struggling with sort of detaching myself to look at myself and observe what is happening in myself as I'm watching, as I'm listening to her. And it was a little bit, it was a little awkward, yeah.
So your experience there was you're trying to listen to Sam and reflect, be a good reflective listener. And at the same time, you have this thought, oh, hey, I'm going to have to report on my experience as a listener. So with that awareness, you had sort of a dual attention going on, and you worked with that. So,
yeah. It was the question of, oh, what is my experience? Yeah. What is my experience right now? It was kind of a, yeah, it was like, oh, what is my experience? You know, and then there was also a little concern that I won't be able to remember what my experience is.
Right. So you were interested, oh yeah, what is my experience? And you got into that, but there was this background question too. Will I be able to reflect and share when it's my turn to do that? What was my experience?
Yeah, and feeling anxiety about remembering what my experience was too. So there's a little bit of concern, anxiety, a little bit of stress. I don't know, didn't quite reach anxiety levels, but it was a little, yes, a little stress.
Yeah, so all the while that you're doing your reflective listening thing, there's this background stress of concern that maybe I won't be able to report what I was experiencing.
Yeah, but then I let it go. I said, okay, I'm just going to listen, forget about that. Forget about trying to detach from myself to observe myself. I'm just going to go into it and go with it and kind of be present. So I kind of let go of that, and then it felt a lot smoother. And I felt, and I kind of enjoyed it more too. Yeah, I enjoyed it more by not trying to remember what I was going to say.
So somewhere during the process of being the listener, you let go of thinking too much about how am I going to report my experience, and then things kind of relaxed in you and you seem to be more in a flow. Yeah,
and I did notice too that when I was doing the reflection, sometimes I wonder, I kind of question, am I doing a good reflection? Is there something I can do to be more do a better job at reflecting? So that thought came to mind is, I feel a little, I'm sensing, I like a feeling of real flow, like a flow of the feelings, and I can feel a little bit of sort of rigidity, and I'm trying to, is there something I can do to get more into the flow? So it's a more of a felt flow, but in the listening, and then maybe a little bit of judgment about, I feel like I'm too rigid in my reflection. So
something interrupted that total sense of flow with you, which was the thought that came in, gee, maybe I'm a little bit rigid here because I'm trying so hard to, what can I do to really be the best possible listener? So that kind of interrupted your flow.
Yeah. and just trying to think of how to create, like, oh, what can I do to create more flow? Yeah, so it was like I was just asking that question.
So during all this, when you noticed that the flow was interrupted, you began to think, well, what can I do to create more flow here?
Yeah, and I didn't really have an answer. So I didn't know what I could do. Yeah.
So time was up before you came up with an answer. You said,
yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Know what to do. Okay. So, trying to think, what's the question again?
It's what was your experience in just listening to me?
You. Okay.
Yeah, you just listened to me, and you had a what?
I didn't worry about having to report it at all.
Well, that's what you got to tell the next person.
Right. Okay. So, my experience during all that.
Who are you speaking to, though?
Oh, that's right. I'm not speaking to Edwin. How about Evan? Speak to you.
All right.
Okay. So while I was listening to Edwin, I got really wrapped up in his process of first he was aware of this and then he was aware of that. And I says to myself during that listening period, geez, Edwin's got a lot going on.
As you were listening to Edwin, you got really wrapped up in his process, and you said to yourself, wow, Edwin's got a lot going on in there.
Yes, I felt like I took a journey with Edwin. He really, I think, let me into his world, and I got the real, genuine feeling of having split attention and trying to do two things at once, and I found that quite engaging.
So you felt really immersed in Edwin's experience of how he was processing everything.
Yeah, and now I'm realizing, and I'm not sure if this was totally going on at the time, but I was kind of evaluating too, like, hey, this is really good, that type of thing. So part of my process as a listener, I think, may be how interested am I and how engaged am I? And I was evaluating his share as very engaging.
Okay, so there was evaluation going on, and it just so happened that you were very engaged. The content was very engaging to you.
Yeah, and now I feel like I know Edwin even better. I'm feeling happy and relaxed about all that.
Okay, so you feel happy and relaxed knowing Edwin better.
Yeah, so I feel heard. That's good enough for me. Oh, I'm supposed to take 5 minutes? I remember that.
No, it's whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. I don't think I want to take 5 minutes. I'm done.
All right. I'll go to Bill.
I'm listening.
All right. This is so meta. It's so interesting. I feel like when I first started, I got into that same trap that Edwin was talking about, the sort of splitting of the self, and I was kind of laughing to myself in my own head a little bit. Like the image that came to mind was when you're looking in the mirror and you also have a mirror behind you, and then there's just like a million of you. So, I guess that's an exaggerated effect of the splitting of the self.
So you reacted to Edwin's splitting of the self, and you would find yourself doing the same thing, and you kind of felt yourself lost in the funhouse mirror of metacognation as to, you can metacognate until you can't think anymore.
Right. I realized quickly that, yeah, I need to just do what I usually do, and is just sort of stay in lane, in the active listening lane, where I guess that's how I picture it. I'm not thinking about, my biases, and I'm not thinking about my own experiences. I'm just here and I'm ready to, reflect back.
Right. So after experiencing that, you felt that it would be much better served if you went to a simpler focus of just kind of into active listening and let the rest kind of take care of itself.
Yeah. And then I realized I also had a little bit of a self thought of like, it's I can just do when it's my turn later, I'll just sort of describe that feeling and the feeling really, not maybe, not so much like mechanics of all that's going on, but really just what it feels like, because that I can just bring with me without having to spend too much thought there. And so the feeling that I'm bringing in is really that image, I think, of just kind of staying in a lane, and just staying actively listening with the person. And then I think also on top of that, yeah, I did also helplessly experience emotional feedback and sort of feeling joy, and some of the feelings that Susan was feeling.
Okay. So again, being caught up in there, you felt just to be kind of stay in your lane of active listening was the best. And then once that's sort of gotten sorted out, and there's a feeling, you then were noticing your feelings of joy in listening to people and participating.
Yeah, I guess when I feel joyful I can't help it when I feel joyful with someone, and it could very well be during, actively listening. So I just feel like it's something I can't even help, of having like, some laughter or some smiling along the process. It's hard to completely suppress that.
No, so you're feeling that your accompanying joy is non-voluntary. It just kind of happens naturally as you go and you participate in active listening.
Right. Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. Let's see. Sam? I haven't talked to you, Sam, but how are we on the rotation?
I think we want to do Jyoti, and then she'll speak to Sam, just so we have one full round.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Jyoti, would you listen to me, please?
Sure.
Okay. So how do I feel? Mostly, I don't worry about it. It's, if you think about how many times even people close to you will spend 5 minutes just listening to you, right? It doesn't happen too often. So if I'm doing that, I'm trying my best. That's about the best you're going to get. It's like, not that I can't improve and things like that, but, I feel very secure is what I'm trying to say, is I feel very secure in my good intentions and my effort. And that's just the best I can do. And I just kind of let the rest go away. So I can stop there.
So you're saying that you're feeling pretty comfortable
Mm-hmm.
and relaxed about your ability to be present and listen to people.
Mm-hmm.
And especially given the context of what the status quo in our culture is, of like how scarce listening is. It's like the bar is pretty low, and it's like you find it kind of easy to like be above the bar on a pretty easy in a pretty easy way.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. And again, I find myself, being changed and being affected. And that is what I like about that, is that I don't have to direct it. I just have to be receptive.
So you find yourself being changed, and it doesn't require a lot of effort. It's just the most effort is just remembering to remain receptive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess the profound, I feel a profound sense of the value of listening and speaking. And the experience of that is very important to me.
So you find a lot of profound importance in speaking and listening.
Mhm.
And I think you're saying that in the experience of qualities, you know, the quality of being really heard and being able to speak, and then knowing that you're going to really be heard.
Mm-hmm. And I actually like it when I get it wrong, when I'm a listener, because then the person has a chance to clarify. And if they can clarify and feel safe in that, you know, feel, hey, okay, and then I can just, you know, and it's not like a judgment on each other, but it's just like, okay, let me try again. I really like that. And then I'm done.
Yeah, okay, so you find a lot of opportunity and challenge and kind of maybe even fun when you don't get it right, because there's opportunity for going deeper and getting to where you're really understanding the other person.
Thank you, Jody. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
And my experience listening to Bill was...
You're speaking to Sam, right?
Okay, hi, Sam. My experience in speaking to Bill was kind of relaxed, and I felt ease. I also enjoyed the content that he was sharing, so I was having some pleasure with just hearing what he was sharing with me.
Yeah, so you mainly felt at ease and a sense of enjoyment of listening to what he was saying.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
And you're not really sure what else to say right now.
If you feel fully heard, just say you're fully heard, and then.
Fully heard.
Okay. So Sam, you can select. We'll go one more round. And so, what was your experience listening to Jyoti? And just select someone.
Okay. I'll select Bill.
Okay.
So it was. I started with that intention of like I intentionally sort of relaxed my body in preparation for when Jyoti was about to speak. So I did kind of intentionally do that.
Okay. So in preparation to listen to Jyoti, you relaxed your body so you could be receptive.
Mm-hmm. And as she was speaking, it felt like her words were coming towards me and kind of getting absorbed. Yeah.
Okay. So you were feeling both in hearing the words, but also there was a feeling. There was a very strong feeling of the words kind of coming to you, and you were absorbing the words.
Mm-hmm. And I did notice some parts of me chattering about, okay, you know, because I have a part of me that is concerned about forgetting something and not getting everything. So I did still notice that part kind of coming.
Mm-hmm. So you still noticed that you were kind of self-observing, and there was a little bit of judgment there.
Mm-hmm.
More?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm noticing now that I feel like I want to speak on is that I felt like I could listen better when I'm the inactive listener.
Okay. So you felt that you can listen better when you're the inactive listener. And then what I'm reading into that is because you don't have a list of to-dos in your mind as you're the inactive listener.
Right. And I notice more of the joys and the connections with what people are saying when I'm in that role versus when I'm in the active listener role.
Okay. So you really kind of enjoy the freedom and lack of stress being in the the passive listener role as opposed to the active listener role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll speak to Susan. Okay. Well, the first thing I did is I judged. I really didn't speak about listening to Evan specifically. So partially I felt, when I was my process. And what I want to say about Evan and listening to him is that I could kind of parallel with the same struggles that I went through as a young man, sort of merging my identity, dealing with the politics of family and everything like that. And so I could really kind of empathize with that. So
Okay, so first of all, you started out by judging yourself that you actually didn't report on your own experience of listening to Evan, but now you're kind of doing that. And you identified quite a bit with Evan's reporting of the politics of being in a family and the pressures. You experienced similar pressures to what he talked about in his share. Is that right?
Yes, that's great. Thanks. And for Sam, I was, my feeling. I feel her in both. I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel her in both those worlds: the active listener and the passive listener. I kind of feel the struggle. It's kind of like it's fun to be the passive listener. I understood that. And yet the active listener is needed to make this circle go. And I can kind of feel her feeling out those roles and how do I make the active listener maybe as comfortable as the passive listener, and back and forth. And I don't have an answer. But I really appreciate the level of thought and care that goes into that reflection.
So you could really feel into what Sam shared about the different experiences between being more relaxed as the passive listener versus being a little more on it when you're the active listener. And then you began to reflect on, well, how could we resolve that somehow so that it's less stressful, I guess, being in the active listening role? And you haven't come to a conclusion on that question yet.
No, but I do respect the process of Sam and all of us asking the questions and thinking about it. And then I'm done.
Okay. So just having that question, you value that in and of itself. The question of how we feel into both sides of the listener role. And you're done now.
Yes. Thank you very much, Susan. I feel fully heard.
Okay. So what am I supposed to do?
Continue. Just what did you experience listening to Bill just now and speak to, I think it's, I think there's three of us, Jyoti or me or Evan.
Okay, Edwin, will you listen?
Okay.
To me? So my experience with William just now, or Bill, I don't know, now I'm going, okay, what do I call him? My experience with Bill just now was like, first thing I noticed was I got a little hung up on Bill saying, I noticed this in myself, my self-talk, him saying, I could feel both sides of her or something. Somehow I was looking for the right way to say that back to him. So I translated that as he felt empathy for what Sam was saying. But I imagine as I'm reflecting on why did I get hung up on that? The word feel her or something. I imagine I had some little judgment about him saying it that way. And I need to inquire into that further. So let me stop there.
Okay, so you were observing that when Bill was talking about feeling into the two parts of what Sam was saying, that you felt something and you were wondering how to reflect that. And you're thinking there was maybe some kind of a judgment or something in there that you're not quite clear about what it was. And you had translated into empathize, but there's something there that you're trying to sort of explore.
So while I'm listening to William then, I resolved that sort of thing within myself, that question, how do I reflect this back? By just using William's word, feel. I had the decision, should I use the word empathize with Sam? Or should I use the word feel with Sam? So I just tried to stay as close as I could to what Bill was saying. I imagine I didn't quite trust my listening in there because, as I said, there was a judgment of my own that crept in.
So you were noticing, you were looking like how to reflect that. You use the word empathy, and then you're noticing something going on there, and you thought that just by using his words was sort of the approach that it seemed that using his words was the best way to just deal with that issue.
Yeah, and whatever that little thing that I'm calling a judgment was, I don't think it was too significant. I'll work with that on my own time here. Overall, my experience was kind of just interested in Bill. I think I'm just interested in Bill as a person anyway. So I'm always interested in what Bill says.
So you're noticing you're interested in what Bill says. You're always interested in what he says, and just kind of sitting with that feeling of that interest. And there is this one point you were kind of wanting to get some clarity about. Then you'll probably think about it, afterwards, try to get some clarity about what happened with that word feel into. Yeah.
That I feel fully heard, Edwin. Thank you.
Okay. I'll speak to Evan. And you're muted still. I muted everyone just to any background noise. Okay, so it was my experience. I had noticed there was this, I feel like a learning for me that happened in terms of just settling into and kind of relaxing into the listening. So I sort of consciously, took a breath and just felt slowed down, like tried not to think about it, just feeling into this, creating this space for the listening.
Okay, so you kind of got into this relaxed state to just kind of settle into the listening mode.
And then I was noticing there was this sort of a conflict area, with Susan, and I was like really sort of fascinated with the conflict. There's something about these conflicts that is, I don't know, it's like it's kind of, there's a fascination and a wanting to kind of get clarity and open up that conflict to see what's sort of in it. It's like I was really quite fascinated with that.
Okay, so when Susan brought up this sort of conflict about catching herself in the listening and the judgment and that sort of thing, you were very fascinated by that, and you're really fascinated by these things, those types of things that we're bringing up, and you want to dive deeper into that.
Oh, yeah, and I was wondering about the nature of that conflict, using the word feel or empathy. And I was wondering, is it because, and wondered this in my mind, it kind of just flashed like, oh, is this an issue about a male saying that they're feeling something, that a woman is feeling? And is this sort of some kind of a, is there some kind of a, an issue around that? So I was just sort of like speculating while she was saying it, kind of looking for sort of a solution to what that conflict was about. And
Okay, so you got really engaged with that conflict about the word choice, feel versus empathy. You were wondering if it had to do something with saying feel about a man saying that about a woman, and you were just kind of like wondering what the solution is, or just wanted to explore it.
I get a sense of clarity, and even what is underneath that. What does that mean? I didn't get farther beyond that. I could sort of feel it. I could feel within that space of being calm and sort of trying to be open, relaxed. I could feel sort of in this part, I could feel the conflict within that space, and it had sort of a lightness to it. It had a sort of a bit of a rigidity to it. And I was kind of had a curiosity about, I'd really like to kind of open that up to see how it sort of unfolds, and kind of what is the meaning of this. And yeah, so I was just kind of very curious.
Okay, so you're kind of in this very curious discovery mode of wanting to take this conflict and expand it and explore it and kind of tinker with it.
Yeah. And then I did notice is sort of is the arc of the listening that I did like maybe two times, like say, I have to report back again. So I started stepping out, but then I just kind of forgot it and just said, no, just go back in. So I was kind of doing that, pulling out, kind of separating a little bit, and then just tried to focus on the presence. Yeah.
Okay.
And I came into it with the sense that, I'm not going to worry about reporting back, that I will report back from the minute when I'm reporting back like I'm doing now. I'll just see what comes up in the reporting back without trying to capture something to report back on, So, yeah, so I noticed that was something, too, that was going on in my mind.
Okay, so you came into it initially saying to yourself, I'm not going to do this thing where I look for something to report on. I'm just going to be present. But then you did have a couple of moments where you're kind of like, dividing yourself again to look for something to report back on.
Yeah, and that I would stay present. I came in it with the intention, I'm going to try to just stay present, and I'll just report back when I report back whatever comes up in that moment, instead of sort of splitting myself.
Okay, so you're saying you just wanted to stay present and then just kind of look back and report on just the experience.
Yeah, like I'm doing right now. So yeah, that was just thinking, is there anything else? Yeah, so I think that was it. I feel heard.
Okay, great. Jati, will you listen to me? You're muted there.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so I also wanted to just stay present again, and sort of stay in my lane, I guess, as I referred to it before. Looking back, I think I was maybe 80% in that lane of just being present, and then I definitely can recall a couple moments of getting distracted.
So right now you're remembering that your first priority is to stay in your lane, just stay present.
Yeah, but I'd say I was about like 80% successful.
Yeah, and in the prior round, you think you're about 80% successful.
Or yeah, when I was just listening to Edwin just now.
Oh, just listening to Edwin now, you were about 80% successful.
Yeah. I got distracted when you were kind of, or when Edwin was kind of talking about like wondering what Susan was thinking about, and then I was wondering myself, and I was like, oh, I had some thoughts creeping in, so that was one of the moments, I think.
So when Edwin was talking about Susan and her process, you found yourself a little distracted there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but otherwise, when I was sort of just staying in lane, I just felt, I think what Susan said before, which was a really good word to capture it, I think it was, I just felt immersed.
So you're noticing that while you are observing yourself staying in the moment in your lane, that you feel like a sense of immersion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
It's Sam Celeste. I think Sam is the last person.
Okay. Sam, I'm remembering what Bill said about his appreciation for the depth of care and thought. I don't think those are the words he used, but whatever the words were that he used, I was like, felt very touched, and that really reflected my own impression. Enjoyed that. Connecting to his observation of what you offered.
So it sounds like you were very touched by when Bill was sharing his observation of listening to me and feeling into that.
Yeah, his ability to articulate a felt experience, I was admiring.
So you really admire his ability to articulate his felt experience.
Yeah, to really translate. It's almost like translating the right brain experience into a linear left brain consecutive thought word delivery. And it's a certain, I just admire that. And it's very satisfying to connect with that.
So you share that it's kind of like translating from a right brain experience to the left brain with the words of describing it, and you just really appreciate that.
Yeah, it allows me the opportunity to connect with in another way, or in a deeper way. There's one way of connecting with it in a nonverbal way and feeling it, and then somehow putting it in words really brings it even deeper. I mean, like I could experience you in that way and not have the ability to articulate or put in words the experience, but hearing someone else describe it, very like, wow, I like that. It feels like poetry. It's like very touching.
So maybe, when you're listening to somebody, you really have those feeling kinds of reactions, and you notice how other people translate their feeling reactions, and it kind of inspires you in a way. Maybe there's a part of you that finds that challenging to kind of translate the felt sense into words, and so when you see how other people do it, it's very kind of inspiring and eye-opening for you, and then helps you in your own process and feeling deeper and more connected to them.
Right, and it creates that sense of safety, and that, wow, people really do see deeply into each other. It's possible. And yeah, I'm of the generation of people who were invisible to the system, couldn't read, a little autistic, so forth. And so speaking has always been a continual thing I need to, or I've learned to make it an exercise to become better at, because it's a brain function that's difficult for me to articulate. But most people will hear me and they have no idea because, you know, I've done a pretty good job.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you've, because of your experiences and your upbringing and the generation in which you're coming from, that speaking and articulation was always kind of challenging, but you found a way to sort of like hide it a little bit or pass in a way so that people don't recognize that difficulty that you have with it. But that when you see other people reflecting and articulating things, it helps you feel safer and like, oh wow, people can really hear each other and speak freely, and that's just kind of comforting.
Yeah, it's to know that it's possible, you know, and that people can, with ease and with grace and with be, you know, that's like a natural flow of I get you and you get me, and it's just like an easy thing. It's just refreshing.
So there's this natural flow that gets created when there's that back and forth between speaking and listening and feeling and translating to words and all of that. And it's just, you really enjoy that.
Yeah. There's not an intention to hide. It's just that I've overcome a lot of my inability to articulate and speak and participate, and so therefore the handicap kind of goes unrecognized.
So you feel that maybe you still have a handicap in that area of speaking and articulating, but you recognize that you've overcome a lot of it to the extent that others may not notice.
Right.
That was a 5 too.
Okay.
Okay, and Sam, do you can have your second turn in terms of what were you experiencing in this moment. So you can select anyone, and that will be the end of this round.
All right, I'll select you, Edwin.
Okay.
I really appreciated getting the second round of talking about the experience of listening, and I noticed definitely a difference in, I'm realizing now that I'm listened for Jyoti the last time versus this time. And so I found myself feeling, appreciating how much she was offering this time, whereas last time, the last round, she wasn't sure what to say and, you know, wasn't sharing much. And so I felt this appreciation of like, oh wow, like there's so much good stuff here.
Okay, so when you were listening, you have an appreciation, you're glad that you could share a second time around, and that also you listened to Jyoti the first time, she didn't have a lot to say. So this time she shared a fair bit, and you were feeling like, oh, this is really good stuff. This is maybe a sense of gratitude or interest in all that she had to say, and so really appreciating everything that she had to say.
Yeah, and I found myself sort of relaxing into the listener role a little bit more, and almost like feeling, again, like the words were coming in, but this time I was sort of like really digesting them and processing them, and then, you know, putting them back out. I don't know, that's what the process felt like to me.
So you're sort of describing the process of sort of letting the words come in, and then you're just sort of feeling into them and sort of looked like you're sort of working with them and just letting them flow. And so it sounds like a sense of ease with this happening.
Yeah. And, you know, I every now and then I would notice a part kind of like, wait, trying to figure out what she was saying and am I fully understanding that? Do I really fully get it? There's a couple of times where I noticed I would have liked to ask a clarifying question, but again, I held back and didn't. And so that reminds me of my earlier question that I had.
Mm-hmm. So you're noticing she's saying something and you're not quite clear of what it is she's saying, and you would like to be able to ask a clarifying. You noticed you would have liked to have asked a clarifying question to get more clarity about what it is that she was saying.
Yeah, but I felt like overall I got what she was saying. Like, and when I sort of just relaxed and continued to listen to her, it was like I was able to sort of fill in the pieces that maybe I felt like I might have been missing before in what she said later on.
So overall, you felt like you were understanding what she was saying. There were moments where you had sort of a question about what it was she was saying, and you just let that go because you couldn't ask the questions. And then you're noticing that as you kind of heard more, it was filling in some of those questions that you had about what it was that she was saying.
Trying to think if there's anything else. No, it was a very enjoyable experience overall.
So overall enjoyed the experience. Okay. Feel heard?
Yes.
Okay, great. So looks like we ran out of time. We could have used a little bit more time. So maybe just in sort of a quick debrief, if you have a few extra minutes, 5 minutes, I guess we have 6. Like, how was the overall experience of this, and specifically also this last exercise? Like, and I can start in terms of I really like this. This is like a different role, like really a different experience, a different way of looking at the listening, in the present moment. And I really enjoy approaching it from this aspect, from the present moment. So I could even see doing this a few more rounds to kind of, and so that's me.
I'll share.
Sorry, go ahead.
I really, really enjoyed this a lot, and it clarified a lot of things for me as far as like what I've been trying to do in my practice as a school social worker, because I started sort of like an empathy circle group at my school, but I've been wanting to bring in elements of like interpersonal process theory, where you actually talk about what's happening in the here and now in the real time. And this process got that for me. It was like, oh yeah, this is what I need to do to kind of bring that in more. And so it gave me a lot of ideas for how to implement that. But then there's another part of me that's kind of like, I don't know if the kids I work with are really have the skills to have that level of self-awareness to be able to articulate and to reflect those things. And so I have to kind of work that out a little bit. Maybe I can ask Bill later some ideas. Then also I felt like wanting to say that I too, Edwin, when you were commenting on Susan's sort of process before, I had the same exact thought as to whether, that pause or that conflict was because Edwin or because Bill was a male, kind of using the feeling word, and like maybe that this is something not expected or usual. And I don't know, I just thought it was interesting that I had the same exact thought that you had, Edwin. So, but you know, that's more than we can really get into right now.
And the overall arc of the 2 hours, any comments about that?
I loved when we did that self-care check-in in the middle, and we got to just say, how are we feeling and what are we needing right now? And it kind of turned into like the stretching and the this and the that. Love that, and I would want to see that continue. So, but yeah, overall, I just, really enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
Okay, anyone else? Just open it, popcorn. Just.
I have an idea about what Susan said about noticing her boredom. And when I heard her say, it's my need to be entertained, I thought to myself, I wonder about that. I wonder if I put myself in her place, if I would be actually needing more meaningful connection, or more meaningful connection instead of entertainment. Because when she said entertainment, it sounded sort of like self-deprecation and, you know, judgment, self-judgment. Anyway, that's just the thought I had, and no need to, you know, you can go into it if you want, but maybe that's just a seed to contemplate.
Mm-hmm. And the exercise, the last exercise, how did that work? And also the arc of the 2 hours is a training experience.
In the beginning, I was really grateful that you went first to demonstrate the process, because I had lots of confusion just getting my head around what we were supposed to be doing without seeing it done. So I was really grateful that you went and demonstrated that. And I also think that the second round of this last exercise was really learningful. I got a lot out of it. In the beginning, it's like, this just feels stressful and like, what are we doing this for? But then I got a lot more connected to it.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
I'll go next.
Susan?
I liked the whole process, and I noticed that during it a couple of times I got confused, like, where are we? And I want to ask if all this gets written down somewhere, like this whole design of today. That's I assume that's all.
Yeah, it's the slideshow is there, so it's on the. I can send you the link.
Yeah.
So we'd love any kind of feedback on the design. You know.
I liked it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally liked it. I'm pretty relaxed about the fact that I did get confused a couple of times. You know, disclosing my boo-boos is like not a problem. I kind of like that I got confused. You know, it was like I was so into listening that I forgot what the assignment was. You know, and my overall thoughts and feelings today are real appreciation for the people in this group. I'm just finding great value in listening to you guys, and so I think it's a very personal thing for me. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Evan or Bill? Yes, last.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree that the little mirroring really helps break things up. That definitely helped. Was really impressed and enjoyed the reflecting on the reflecting. That immediate reflection of something that you just did. I think that's something that we haven't gotten yet, and that was really cool. And I felt like it helped me cement what just happened, because my recollection was so fresh and ready. It really helped me cement my experience of like, oh, I'm gonna keep that now. I think I'm gonna keep that now in my brain. That's really there. It just so happened to work out that reflecting on your listening, it's easy to do that in a chain, but if you're reflecting on speaking, then you'll have to go twice. So it would work differently for the other ones, but I'm still curious about how that would work for the other role and other things. And then the only thing that I think maybe I'd be curious about adding is, because we're talking about, just how we feel about the, the listener role. But I'm wondering if, I don't know, maybe there's more instruction or kind of a, do we want to agree on a process, something like that. And maybe that's for another session, but something.
Okay, great, thanks. So Bill, I guess you're the last.
Okay. So I also want to reflect how much, I got out of this session, how much, I really respect everybody bringing it to this meeting. I want to express my thanks for, I haven't heard that many nice things said about me within an hour. I think I've reached my quota. But I appreciate, but just think for those who are watching about being appreciated for expressing appreciation. And isn't that what our society needs? I'll just quickly shoot this to you, Viola Spolin's Theater Games, if you're getting, for both Susan and for Sam. These are theater games. She started Second City. I put my my email address in the chat room. So if you want to follow up with any questions. And I also have done 2 short lessons for special ed kids. And I'm going to do some more. So I'll be happy to collaborate with you and let you know what I've done. So I just want to again express my appreciation to everyone and just hope that these feelings spreads.
Well, thank you, everyone. So, thank you for taking part. We won't be meeting next week. I hope you can meet the week after. I don't know how your schedules are. It turns out Sam, there's
maybe. Depends. I may have something I have to do that Saturday, so yeah.
Yeah, I was going to be doing a panel. I got invited to a panel at a church here to talk about the empathy movement. So, anyway, so it'll be the week after that we have the next meeting, and I guess we have to check their schedule, and then we'll talk about any future meetings. And the next one will be on the facilitator role. So thank you very much, and we're a little bit over, but we'll be posting this shortly. And in terms of the emails, Bill, I do send it to everyone, so everyone has everyone's email. So if you look in the header of the email, everyone's email is there if you want to connect with each other. So, okay, then see you next time we meet, and we'll send email announcements. So,
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Have a good day, rest of the day.